Welcome in to another edition of the Hang Time Podcast. It's your main man, Sekou Smith, here in Atlanta. John Schuman's in New Jersey, and John Hartzell's behind the glass making it all work. We appreciate you joining us for another episode. We're past the halfway point of the season, people. Week 14 power rankings are live on NBA.com. But before we get to shoes rankings and break all that down, it was yet another busy weekend of action around the NBA, highlighted by a wild and crazy game in Washington, D.C. on Sunday. Shu, a double overtime thriller in D.C., an MVP candidate and an all-star candidate, I think, in Bradley Beal. Kawhi, of course, led the Raptors with 41 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks, playing at an elite level now. It's so smooth what Kawhi is doing with the Raptors. We've almost stopped talking about his transition season and how he's playing, but I think he looks great with the Raptors. I don't know what he's going to do in free agency, but I wouldn't be mad if he's in Toronto for the foreseeable future. I think he's a great fit there. Is Bradley Beal an all-star shooter? Do you think he's done enough or has played well enough to garner all-star status this year?
Probably. We was at the Knicks game on Friday, and I was talking to a couple other writers, and Zach Lowe was there, and he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my all-star picks. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We only have to pick the top, media voting. We only have to pick the top 5, right? And so anybody that you don't include in the top 5 is, you don't really worry about snubbing somebody because they're going to be an all-star anyway, right? If you're just picking the starters. But he's like all stressed because he picks, for his article, he picks all 12 guys. And
got you.
So I haven't even, personally, I haven't thought about, spots 6 through 12 in either conference very much. And
sure.
we'll have to submit our starter ballots, I think, in the next week.
Yes.
But yeah, I think, and generally I'm a team success guy. And so I was ready to just say, hey, just take, 5 guys each from the Raptors, Celtics, Sixers, Bucks, and Pacers, and then add Kemba Walker and Nikola Vucevic, and we're good, right? But
I don't know, man.
Two guys each from those 5 teams, and then add Kemba Walker and Vucevic, and we're good. But I think
what 2 Pacers you sent to the All-Star game? Wait a minute.
Bogdanovich, my man, he is having a heck of a season.
Come on now.
But yeah, Bradley Beal's definitely put himself in that conversation. The Wizards are showing some signs of life.
5-4 since John Wall went out.
We've talked about it a couple weeks ago when Wall was done for the season. That you know what, that 6, 7, 8 in the East is still so wide open. Anything could happen, and they're right there. The Pistons got an important win.
We're going to get to them in a minute,
the weekend. And then Orlando beat Boston and Houston over the weekend. So teams 9, 10, and 11 in the East have shown some signs of life when it looked like, the East was going to be not so interesting in the bottom 3. So it's good to see the Wizards. They're going out to, I don't know if the trip to London will help or hurt their little momentum that they've built up. But also the Raptors, 5-game winning streak now with that win.
The Raptors, it's ridiculous what they do.
And going to Kawhi Leonard, I know that talking about his passing is kind of nitpicking with a guy that, is just an incredible player on both ends of the floor. But I think his playmaking has been lacking for the most part this season. And then in these last 5 games, he's got 26 assists, which is the most assists he's ever had in a 5-game stretch in his whole career. So that is the one thing I've sort of kept an eye on with Toronto, is sort of integrating him into the team offense, and rather than him just being sort of a one-man show on certain possessions and then the ball moving to other guys on other possessions. And like I said, he had 26 assists over the last 5 games. He had the assist to Serge Ibaka on the game-winning 3 in Washington on Sunday. And so that's I think the most encouraging sign about the Raptors starting to get their feet under them again.
Right. Who's the second All-Star you putting on from the Raptors?
Well, I would have said Kyle Lowry, but he's been hurt. That was just a silly.
I don't care. You open that can.
I got to pick up 2. I got to pick 2 for now. All right. So Kawhi Leonard.
I'm thinking it's Pascal Siakam.
Maybe.
Why not?
Maybe. He has big games in the last.
He had some monster games. Yeah. Why not?
He's been really good.
All right, I'm just fishing. I'm just trying to get you.
Either way, you want to go through all 5 of those teams?
No, I'm just trying to get you in trouble. My other favorite game of the weekend and really favorite moment from the weekend by far is Blake Griffin getting his revenge on the Clippers. And, I'm a Blake guy. I'm definitely Team Blake. Him dropping 44 and getting the win at Staples, that's classic. The even better part is I don't even know what to call it, since he wouldn't own up to snubbing Steve Ballmer and refusing to shake Ballmer's hand after he got done with his pregame workout. But I like it. I like the pettiness. I don't mind petty action.
I just wish he owned it afterwards instead of sort of going into denial about, what clearly looked like a blatant snub. But
listen, if we ever get sideways one day and you're wondering, did I snub you or not? If I see you somewhere and just take off the other direction, trust me, it's me snubbing you. I don't want you to have like Ballmer looked like he was kind of confused. Like, gee, I don't know if it was.
I've never seen you run, so I assume, if you're running, it's with a purpose.
There's another guy, though. I'm going to be upset if Blake doesn't make the All-Star team because I think he's played well enough in All-Star.
That's a good one. Yeah, probably. And you're right. You're right. The Pacers and maybe the Raptors don't have a second All-Star, but we'll see. I'll once I get my 5 starters, I'll think more about the 7 reserves, and we can talk about that in a future podcast edition. But I think the Pistons would be the best team in the league if every game was a revenge game. 2 of their best wins of the season were at Toronto in Dwayne Casey's return, and then winning at the Clippers.
Yeah, I don't know if they can count on. I don't know if they can count on enough revenge games to get them through. Do you agree with Ben Simmons that the Sixers are too soft, which was his declaration after they lost to the lowly Atlanta Hawks?
Yeah, and they lost to the Wizards before that too. So I don't know, but we're gonna find out because they play the Wolves in the reunion game with Jimmy Butler on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. That's on NBA TV, by the way, 7 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday night. And that is the end of 7 straight games against teams that currently have losing records. But the Wolves are a decent team with the losing record, obviously playing a little bit better of late and still in the Western Conference playoff picture. And then after that, the Sixers are going to play something like 11 or 12 straight games against teams that currently have winning records.
Yeah.
Yeah, 12 straight against teams that currently have winning records. There's 15 teams that currently have winning records, or 15 or 16. And the Sixers have played the fewest games against that group. They're 7-8 currently. And now after the Minnesota game, they're going to play 12 straight. That starts with a game in Indiana, and then they play the Thunder at home over the weekend, I think. And so that 12 games is going to tell us a lot. This team, they're finally healthy. They've been banged up, the last couple of weeks. J.J. Redick missed a couple of games. Joel Embiid missed a game. Wilson Chandler has missed a couple of games. Butler, I think, has missed a game or 2. So they're healthy. At least their starting lineup is healthy. They've had Butler now for 2 months. And now they're going into a stretch of 12 tough games. So I think I'm kind of fascinated to watch them over this stretch and see where they are. They're sort of hanging around outside the top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. And it'll be interesting to see if they sort of make some progress on either end of the floor against that group, just how they play against these good teams, because they haven't really played a lot of good teams of late. And it's going to be a good test. And so maybe it's a good time for Ben Simmons to be sort of calling them out because the schedule's about to get a lot tougher.
Yeah. Does this – it dawned on me looking at the stretch coming up for all these teams, for the entire league leading up to All-Star. Does it seem like the season is kind of flying by?
Yes.
I didn't realize – I was like, okay, we're at the midseason point. No big deal. We do that, around this league. That's normal. But it just seems like 2 snaps and we're already – past the mid-season. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean, the All-Star break is coming up. Like every day I'm like, oh, I got to get my flight. And then I realize we're late. We're going there in less than a month to Charlotte. So yes. And this is normally the sort of tough stretch of the season, between Christmas and the All-Star break where, right. It's winter and it's kind of a little bit of a grind, until you get to that break. But there's been so much parity in the league and there's so much up for grabs. Any team that lets go of the rope right now is in serious trouble. There's obviously still 14 teams playing for playoff spots in the West, still 11 teams playing for playoff spots in the East. That top 5 in the East is jockeying for position. The Celtics obviously not happy with being in 5th place right now.
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting. Yeah, it has flown by, but I think because of all the parity, this next few weeks between now and the break is more important than we're probably used to being.
Yeah. I'm going to get to the Celtics shortly. They concern me again. No, I'm going to tell you, I think there's some clear cracking in the foundation there with Kyrie. And maybe he's just a dude who's not going to be satisfied.
He likes to talk.
No
also, let's just put it out there. He likes to talk to the media and likes to tell them what he, I don't know, there's something about him that he likes to talk about this kind of stuff about the young guys who need to learn and all this. Like, I feel like he asked to be in this position, and now he's
bristling at every turn. He's like everything's an issue. It's like, well, bro, you wanted to be the leader of your own band. Now you got it. So now you're finding out that, this is not as easy as it looks. I don't know. I feel like things are going to come to a head at some point, and they're going to have to part ways with some people on that roster. And I'm sure it's going to look like the right thing to do at the time, but I'm like, man, I hate to see them break up.
I don't know if that has to happen between now and July.
I don't know when it happens, but I'm saying there's going to come to a point where, and I've said this before, Shu, I said this years ago when, the Thunder had Harden, Westbrook, and KD when they were young guys, when they went to that first finals together. And, we'd sit around and have conversations. I had this conversation with a couple of executives, and they were under this crazy notion like, well, why wouldn't all these guys, why wouldn't they be happy together, evolving as a group and blah, blah. And I said, you can't expect young, ambitious, talented guys like this to be content with the idea of one of them has to be sacrificed for the greater good. Like, you can't expect Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum to be cool, or Rozier to be cool with being a secondary piece for the foreseeable future. That's not how ambitious 20-somethings or, teens in some cases, that's not how it works. They're not, no dude's going to be happy saying, you know what, I'm the third wheel or I'm the odd man out, so I should just be cool with it and continue to work hard and accept it. Like, that's not realistic. And for Kyrie to expect any of those young guys to take a back seat is no more realistic than it would have been for us to expect him to want to, or for him to be okay with taking a backseat at that stage of his career. It's not, it makes no sense in an environment where 80% of what you're doing is based on your own self-inflated evaluation of who you are. It's not a logical concept to me.
It's funny. It's like, it was all good just 5 days ago when they killed the Pacers. I think it was Wednesday.
When you're riding that emotional wave, man, if you're I always say this, I've heard players say it, when the leader, whether it's the coach or your best player, is the most emotional dude out there or the one with the most fragile ego, that's dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is they're second in point differential per 100 possessions right now, second in the league behind Milwaukee. But, they've sort of struggled in close games or just been mediocre in close games, which is not good enough for how good, a team that we all expected to be representing the Eastern Conference in the finals this year. But hey, there's still 4 months between now
and plenty of time. You know what Boston's problem to me is? Their leader on the books and their leader to the public are two different people to me. And I don't know if they realize that. I don't know if Kyrie understands that. But you've made the point time and again to me in the past. Al Horford should be the backbone of that team. He's the guy who should be the leader of that team. If you're talking about the right temperament, the kind of leadership qualities you need with an ensemble team like that, where you have so many different guys who could do the heavy lifting. I think, to me, this is just my opinion, Kyrie is assuming way too much of the public burden. I've got to be better. I've got to be a better leader. It's like, dude, what you have to do is cede some of that leadership responsibility to the other veterans on your team capable of leading.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what you can say about their playoff run last year is that Horford was the clear vet in that locker room and the guy that
Without all the bluster, by the way.
Yeah. And also the guy that outplayed both Giannis Antetokounmpo and Joel Embiid in the
exactly.
playoff series, by the way. Yeah, I think he's had a little bit of a rough season this year, playing through I guess it's knee pain, and I'd love to see him, whether the leadership thing aside, see him have a just a decent stretch of season on the floor, and see where that takes them.
Boston Celtics are not in the top 5 of the Week 14 Power Ranking shoe, live on NBA.com. Now, your top 5 this week: Toronto Raptors, Milwaukee Bucks, Denver Nuggets, Golden State Warriors, and San Antonio Spurs. Wow. Spurs were not a team that was even in the conversation a month ago. Is this legit? Like, you think they stick around?
We've talked
in
about
this neighborhood.
I don't know. I think I'll still be impressed if they just
make the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, they're in the top 5 now just because they just have been on such a hot streak over the last 5 weeks or so. But then they had a disappointing loss last week in Memphis,
right?
Where their offense just came up empty. And then they split that home and home with the Thunder, including that wild double overtime game.
Yeah.
Where LaMarcus Aldridge scored 56 points. So, I mean, it's still, everything's still up in the air with that group. I think when you look at the Western Conference standings, there's only a couple of teams that we can really say, okay, this team is making the playoffs. The Warriors, I think the Nuggets have just been so good so far that it would be hard to imagine them. And the Thunder, I think just with their defense, you can sort of believe that they're pretty reliable. But after that, Portland, the Clippers, the Rockets, the Spurs, the Lakers, all of those teams have their flaws and could slip at any point. And, there's teams behind them that are playing fairly well or well enough. And, like I said, the Jazz with their easier stretch of schedule are primed to take one of those spots. And right now, as we speak, they're tied with the Lakers for 8th place.
Yeah. Can I go out on a limb and say that I'm going to predict that you won't get as much hate mail for your top 5 this week as you did last week?
It's possible.
This is a very representative top 5 this week. And I know the power rankings, like any other ranking, there's an ebb and flow to it. But that looks like a top 5 I could actually believe in. With the Spurs being kind of an edge team if they could continue to play well. Team of the week, the Golden State Warriors.
Offense is starting to hum. Yeah, Klay Thompson had 44, I think it was, in the one game against the Knicks, and then Stephen Curry 48 on Sunday.
Stroke was pure. I was looking at his follow through on his threes on all 11 of them, and it was like for a dude who shoots it as well as he does, when he's feeling it like that, that's got to be a pretty ridiculous zone to be in when you can shoot it like that and they fall like that. It's like, man, he probably wants the game to go to quadruple overtime so he can keep jacking.
Yeah, they still haven't locked down at all.
No,
still ranked 16th defensively, but they've won 6 of their last 7, and their offense has been ridiculous over that 7-game stretch. 126 points per 100 possessions, and as much of as I don't know, disappointing as they've been, they're playing for first place in the Western Conference on Tuesday. Huge game in Denver.
I know. Do we consider them disappointing when they're? I guess because their own standard.
It's a standard they've set, and we know. Like, we look at them, we know they can be better than what they have. For what they've been. They're 29-14. If you say, okay, the Warriors have played 43 games. How many games should they have won? I would say, they should probably be like 34-9 or something like that.
I wish Boogie was coming back Tuesday night instead of later in the week, potentially. I really do. I would love to see him against the Nuggets, see that matchup with he and Jokic.
It's interesting. Yeah. That's a huge game, obviously, for first place. And they're also skipping over the game in between. I guess it's Wednesday, they play the Pelicans. So it's interesting that he's not making a return against the Nuggets, and he's not making his return against his former team. So that's a little bit interesting.
A little interesting. How many times this season in power rankings have we had the team of the week and the team of the watch be in the same squad?
I don't know.
That needs to be a Schumann stat. What? I'm saying that's good trivia.
Yeah, I mean the first one is about them just sort of taking care of business and blowing
Right.
teams out last week, and then the second one is about one playing the Nuggets on Tuesday, and two seeing the debut.
Come on, man. Get the research department on that. We need to find out if that's happened this season or not. It's a good Schumann stat to have. I'm not gonna take another minute of anybody's time without asking about the Lakers and LeBron and how much longer can they survive without him? Shoot, he's got to get back. I mean, it's got to be ASAP. They're in a fight for a playoff spot now.
They won a couple games last week.
I know, but it's not enough. Not when Utah's,
Yeah, but then obviously they lost the most important game of the week in Utah, and then Sunday they helped the Cavs end their 12-game losing streak. And
you can't do that kind of stuff.
The Cavs defense has been awful. It may be the worst defense in NBA history, honestly.
Right.
And the Lakers scored less than a point per possession in that game on Sunday. And like I said, that was, the Cavs came in losing 12 straight with terrible defensive numbers over that losing streak. And then the Lakers were just awful offensively in that game. Over the 10 games without LeBron, they rank last in the league in offense.
I mean, of course. I mean, they look horrendous sometimes, and you're watching them try and manufacture offense. Basically, we knew they had shooting issues as a group, but they couldn't be more magnified than they were, against the Cavs. It's like, man, this group cannot shoot it. Like, not even just naturally in the flow of a game do they put together stretches where it goes, all right, gosh, they bailed themselves out with a good look. And
it's not just shooting from the field; they're awful from the line too. I mean, they're last in the league in free throw percentage. Lonzo Ball has been awful at the line. It's a team that needs to score in transition, or else it becomes a real struggle. So, like, when you play this team, priority number one is get your butt back in transition. And if you stop them and keep them from shooting in the first 6 or 7 seconds of the shot clock, you are in good shape, because their offense really drops off after that. And like I said, they just don't have shooters on that roster, and it's exacerbated when they don't have a guy to pass the ball to shooters. And Josh Hart is one of their shooters, but he's been terrible over this last 10 games. Or not terrible, but he's just shot poorly over these last 10 games.
See what happens when you don't have Brown in the lineup?
They were counting on Michael Beasley to give him some offense last week.
He tried, but I mean, it's just not,
Kuzma had a big game. Ingram had a big game, but then the wheels fell off later in the week.
Yeah, they got to find a remedy, and his name is LeBron James, and they need him back. Interesting week, Shu, with just some of these games this week. Tony Parker going back to San Antonio tonight. I'm assuming he's not going to get booed the way Kawhi did.
Safe assumption.
Yes, I mean his departure from San Antonio was much different. I will expect some chilly relations in Philly on Tuesday night, because I don't know that Cat or Andrew Wiggins are going to be running over to hug Jimmy Butler during pregame warm-ups. Maybe they do the Blake Griffin runoff. I don't know.
I want Towns or Wiggins to hit a big shot late in the game and yell, "We don't need you" at Jimmy Butler, or something like that, something to that extent. I don't think – Covington hasn't been playing, so it's possible he won't be there for his return to Philly, but Saric will be there. And it's a big game. It's actually a really important game for Minnesota, who is struggling to stay in that Western Conference playoff picture. And all three of their games under Ryan Saunders have been close.
Yeah.
Have been within 2 points in the last minute. So obviously be fascinating to see. It won't be a crowd. The crowd will obviously give Saric a big cheer. And if Covington's there, be happy to welcome him. But the dynamic on the court will be interesting.
I'm expecting frosty temperatures in Philly for sure. You mentioned the Nuggets and Warriors hooking up with a battle for first place in the West. Does it mean more? I know
it's a good question. Like, who is it? Is it more of a measuring?
It's a bigger deal for? Yeah,
Denver, obviously. I think. Mm-hmm. They're playing at home. One, they've been first place for a while, so losing their hold on that with a loss at home would be tough. And like we said, Golden State is still waiting on DeMarcus Cousins, so they have more to to grow from, going forward. Although Denver's banged up too. I mean, Gary Harris has missed games. They just got Will Barton back.
Yeah, he took a bunch. Man, I couldn't believe how many shots he got off in his return game. And I was like, did he really take this many shots in 15 minutes? Like, man,
Will Barton. I mean, it's like, I forgot about Will Barton. In case you forgot who I am, here I am taking, whatever it was, 10 shots in however many minutes.
The other thing about the Nuggets I've been wondering, kind of scratching my, is Isaiah Thomas going to come? I mean, is this going to happen?
I don't know. I'll be fascinated to see, one, if he returns, two, what kind of shape he's in, what he can do, and three, what does that happen with Monty Morris's minutes or, their bench?
Who's been really good.
Yeah.
Monty Morris has been really good for him. It's just strange. I mean, I know he's out there, he's active on social media, but it's like it doesn't sound like there's any kind of urgency to get him back, on the court, unless that. He dealt with some serious injuries, obviously. A guy his size, I can imagine the road to recovery is, maybe more arduous than we realize. And then the last game I want to highlight for this week that's kind of one of those ring the bell games is the Celtics and Raptors on Wednesday in Boston. So, the crowd will be going crazy. As
much angst as the Celtics have had over the last few days, a win over the Raptors on Wednesday would obviously ease things a bit.
Getting lumped up, though, would only amplify some of the drama, too. Though. I mean, they got to be careful, that they don't go out there and the Raptors take them to pieces. Because, we're clearly reaching that point where things come to a head in Boston. There are going to be some, people are going to be looking to see who makes the move, like who decides. I'm telling you, I feel it coming. One of those young players, they keep getting dumped on. Whether it's deliberately or, reading between the lines, they're not going to keep being the brunt of all this and being the guys responsible for not understanding, how they should do in these moments and blah, blah, blah. It's like they did just fine in those moments last year when you weren't playing, Kyrie.
I'll say this same thing about the Celtics as I've said about the Lakers. I think they got to hold on to the summer. Mm-hmm. And see and wait out the Anthony Davis situation before they
do anything.
Really make a move that affects their assets. And, obviously that starts with Brown and Tatum, like any sort of package for an Anthony Davis would start with one of those two guys. And so as it is with the Lakers, I don't see a major move coming until that situation has been resolved, whether it be Davis staying in New Orleans with a contract extension or, a bidding war for his services come July.
Yeah. I'm just curious, how long does the fabric of a locker room withstand that drama that we know? It's not, and it's not like some nasty, knockdown drag out drama, but it's just clearly there's some edge that you either ride it and it fuels you in a locker room, or it just continues being an issue to the point where it tears down whatever it is you're trying to build over the course of a season. And every season for every team is its own individual campaign where it's, even if it's the same players, you're trying to build a narrative year after year, and make it lead to whatever special ending you hope is there. I just don't know how long you deal with this if you're Boston's young guys, because I'm serious. I can imagine they're tired of it.
I also wouldn't put it past Kyrie Irving to make more of the situation than really is there. Just saying, like he's talking more, like the way he's talking is more dramatic than what's really under the surface. But maybe I'm wrong.
You know what? You talk about how the summer could be fascinating and the offseason could be fascinating. I'm going to be very curious to see if Kyrie is a man of his word. He talked about wanting to be in Boston. No, I'm serious. At this point, it wouldn't shock me. Nothing in this league shocks me anymore.
You think he's planted the seed on Sunday, or was it Saturday in the locker room? He planted the seed for his departure.
I just feel like,
oh, yeah, you know what? I promised it, but then, there was that drama in Orlando, and now,
I'm just saying, I'll pose it to you just
he's in our own for a heel turn.
Yeah, no, I'm saying if you were running the Celtics or if you had a vested interest in the Celtics, let's put it that way, would you invest fully with the young core, or would you invest with Kyrie as the leader of the band moving forward? I don't want, you don't even have to answer, but I'm saying that would be a dilemma that would cause me pause if I was Danny Ainge or the ownership in Boston trying to figure out which path to take.
There's good and bad.
You can't do both. If it can't be done together.
There's good and bad with the way he plays, right? Like, he's going to bail you out of some situations and he's going to hit some big shots.
Yes. But you got to get to those situations.
Right. And at the same time, he's going to take you out of your offense every once in a while. And he's not, and the way he plays, or the way offense with him handling the ball so much, may not be the way you want to play offensively in an ideal situation, right? Just ideally, hey, ball moves, people move, it doesn't stop. But like I said, the dude hit some big shots and has already this season carried them offensively to some wins. So
yes, nobody's denying Kyrie's, and I'm never one to question his ability or his talent. That's not in question.
Dude gets buckets.
Kyrie as a number one guy leader, to me, is what's in the crosshairs right now. Does he have the makeup, the temperament, the touch in a locker room needed to be the leader on a championship team?
Let's get all the other Celtics with some truth serum and ask them what they thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying
those Orlando comments to the media.
Yeah, I mean, it would. All I'm saying is that is something you have to evaluate if you're the Celtics moving forward. And I'm going to tell you, it's because of this. If we take a look at what you accomplished last season without Kyrie and Hayward, when they weren't able to play, and we gauge that with what they're able to do this season, we don't know where it ends. It could very well end in the same place or beyond. We'll have to determine that at the end of the season. But if those are the things I'm measuring in juxtaposition to each other, that's a different summer than maybe you anticipated if you're the Boston Celtics. I think we all assumed that this thing would grow together and it would just be one harmonious thing, where, hey, they bad, these guys back, and now look at them, not as easy as that, not as simple as that in theory. And I'll be curious to see, like I said, how this thing plays out, because if you get to the summer shoe and then you start evaluating the season in your Boston and maybe things don't go as planned, you don't make the conference finals, maybe you get bounced before that, then that's when you start backtracking and doing a timeline. So, well, where did we go wrong? And where did things go sideways? And why didn't this work? And you're going to start piecing together a narrative for this season. And to me, it all lies on, well, what was our leadership? What kind of locker room leadership did we have? Were the leaders of this team the right leaders, and did they set the right tone and conduct themselves in a way that was beneficial to this group or not? Those are fair questions to ask when you're talking about spending the kind of money the Celtics are going to have to spend the next few years to fortify themselves as a championship team for years to come. So I'm not mad at you if you're Danny Ainge and ownership in Boston, and you sit down and ask those tough questions before you make those decisions.
Well, the good thing is they still have another half of a season to figure things out.
Yeah. I like to play armchair psychologist sometimes on NBA teams. That's what we do on the Hang Time podcast here. Be sure to check out the full Week 14 power rankings at NBA.com/power rankings. John Schumann works his tail off on him. I don't want anybody to miss out on giving him the business if they don't like him or if they love him or whatever. You deserve your opportunity to give him some feedback. And I don't want you to run off and take your little Monday afternoon nap too soon without your email blowing up. So make sure you check out his power rankings and send him some emails, give him some feedback. We'll be back on Thursday with another episode of the Hang Time Podcast, another deep dive on some team around the league. We haven't decided who that'll be yet, but when we do, we'll let you know, and you'll definitely get a chance to listen to it and hear us chop it up on Thursday's episode of the Hang Time Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to Hang Time on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new episodes all season long. Make sure you leave a review for John Schumann, our producer John Hartzell, the Sekou Smith. We'll see you next time right here on the Hang Time Podcast. On the Hang Time Podcast. Bye.